Okay, we should be
Stream
live.
is live.
All right. Hello, everyone. We appreciate you joining us. We're hoping to discuss Stephen King's novel, The Dark Tower, or Drawing of the Three. That's the second novel in his The Dark Tower series. My name's Brian, and if you're here, I assume you're already familiar with my channel, but Scott and Rowdy are here with me. Would you like to briefly introduce yourselves?
Rowdy, go first.
I'll go first. Okay. I'm Rowdy from the Rowdy Player One channel, which pretty much has shut down about 2 weeks ago. But I still have obligations with live streams and stuff, helping out with Buddy Reads. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Scott. Some other characters in my channel. I like to review books and sometimes movies. That's all I got.
All right. We already have a chat here. It's Mike. Hi there, Mike. Glad to have you. You
Hey,
guys know
hey.
Mike, right?
Wait, is that a real mic?
That's a real Mike.
That's a
Oh,
real mic.
wow.
Okay.
We have finally found a real one.
Was that the
Okay.
was that our stream? Our last one where all the mics showed up?
Yeah.
We had a lot of mics show up, yes.
Yeah.
Was it this mic that started it? Hey, Mike.
I think he might have been the first one, but we had
Okay.
several. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Pat's
we
here.
have Pat here too. Hi, Pat.
Hey, Pat.
That's an honor. I always say that Pat's like the archetype of everyone's favorite teacher. And if you're not familiar with her channel, I can't recommend it any more highly. My favorite videos of hers are her, I think it's called Books I Love to Teach series, but anything from Pat to Winter. Like I said, if you're not familiar, do yourself a favor, check her out.
Absolutely.
We're glad to have you, Mike. So, I guess this first book starts what, about 7 hours following the end of or the opening prologue, or whatever you want to call it, starts, I think, 7 hours
Yeah. Well,
after.
there was a physical time jump. I
Hmm.
think we should let, if you're catching up with us, at the end of the first one, he actually ages what, like 20 years?
Something like that. I think it was
Yeah.
10, but yeah, there's a huge time jump at the
10,
end.
10 years.
Yeah. And that's where that one ends. And this one begins with him having fallen asleep, and it opens with him waking up to quite a surprise 7 hours later. So,
Okay, so do we know how he got there?
to the
Just
beach, or
on the beach, yeah. Because I know at the end of the first one, he's kind of headed in that
yeah,
direction.
when they came out of the mines and he had the palaver with the man in black, he was very close to the western shore there. So he had just kind of arrived in that region at the very end of the book.
Because I was wondering if there was something I missed. I don't know about you, Rowdy, but it seemed like, we just kind of started. And
Yeah.
did he fall off a boat? I thought, did I miss something?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I forget if he made it to the actual beach, but yeah, at the end of the first book, they talk about how they were very near the western shore. So
Okay.
yeah. So why you two want to talk about what Roland wakes up to?
Well, they call them the lobstrosities.
The lobstrosities.
Yes, I'm gonna hold up the book the entire time. I got a request. Yeah, I would say the lobstrosities are probably like, are they about half the size of a man? I mean, I tried to get a picture in my head, like how big they were, but
I got that. I got that. It might even be possible to ride one if you were really in a mind to.
okay.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah,
It,
he's on the beach. He's kind of out of it, uh, and you got the lobstrosities, dee dum 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 dum. They're kind
Yeah.
of have this way of talking, and then whenever a wave hits, it kind of freezes them for a second,
Hmm.
and then they're back at it. but unfortunately for Roland the gunslinger, uh, he loses some bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. This this book did not go how I thought it would go. Like dealing with, I guess it's the weird part about it all is, yeah, him dealing with that and then basically gets hamstrung at the very beginning of the book. I didn't see
Yeah.
that coming at all.
Yeah.
It's
And it
like,
happens immediately. I
yeah,
mean,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, you just got your butt kicked basically by the man in black, you know, and he basically tells you what's going to happen. And then you wake up, as you said, 7 hours and he's 20 years older or whatever. And then, oh, let's get 2 fingers bit off.
Yeah.
Great way to start. And your guns don't work much anymore.
Yeah. All his ammunition's gotten wet too. I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
Yeah. So it's his right hand. He loses 2 fingers,
Yeah. His
and
dominant hand.
yes,
Except
and
when he's shooting, he's supposed to be equally adept with both hands when he's shooting. But
right, and he loses just 1 toe, I think.
Yeah,
I
I think
believe
that's
so.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think me and Brian had just discussed this briefly off screen. One of the things I don't like about superhero shows, like Spider-Man, the second one, Superman, the second one of the Wolverines, is where they take your hero and they lose their powers. So you have
Mm.
like a human Superman, Spider-Man doesn't have his powers, Wolverine doesn't have his powers. And so right from the second book, it's always the second one too. So second book, he's just this unstoppable killing machine, and now he's injured. I was like,
Hmm.
they really
Yeah.
can't take away his. Is he going to take away his fingers? And because that's the whole thing for me. So I don't like to see so soon. If this had happened in the 5th or 6th book, I would have been like, okay. But right from the second, he's already, you know,
They do that a lot in video games too, especially with like, and you're right, it's always the second game, it seems like. The first one, you build up the power because they're young or whatever, but it's like, okay, how do you make a sequel out of a game where you basically, in the first one, you defeated, the baddest bad guy there is or a god or whatever. And it's like, okay, let's strip him of his power and start him completely over again. And it's like that trope has been played, it feels like a million times. But obviously, this book did come out a long time ago. So maybe he was, one of the first ones to do
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think before that, it only like Superman Part 2, because this came out in '87. Superman 2 was '82 ish. So,
Yeah.
you know, I guess he was ahead of his time with this. But for me, I just don't like that. It just kind of
Yeah.
takes the fun out of, I want to see John Wick be John Wick.
Yeah.
I think probably. First of all, do we just want to say full spoiler warning
Yeah.
before we?
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think what it does for the entire arc is that Roland had been traveling alone for so long, and he became attached to the Jake character, but he was still very independent, and as we know, was willing to sacrifice Jake. I think by losing these fingers and everything, he's not helpless, far from it, but I think it forces him to rely on somebody for the first time in a long time. And that's going to be important coming up because we had this prophecy he's going to be drawing these 3 people from another world. That's the drawing of the 3. And
Which I did not take the way that it played out, what I was thinking in my head.
yes, there's kind of a twist to that, isn't there?
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. So I guess after he had the fingers and the toe taken off, he still managed to get out of killing range of these lobstrosities. I hate that term. It sounds goofy. The creatures themselves are actually kind of creepy, but every time I saw the word lobstrosities, I just kind of laughed. But anyway, he starts moving along this beach, and we realize he has also been infected. So he is having red streaks moving up his arm, and he's starting to have both physical and mental symptoms of a systemic infection. But eventually, he comes across this door on the beach. And you want to talk about the door a little bit, Scott?
Yeah, he's heading. Is he heading south?
That's an interesting point.
I just want to throw that in there because I was confused at first.
I think he's heading north,
Is
but
it is he heading
there
northwest or northeast?
he's heading parallel to the shore, but I think generally it's in a northward direction.
Okay.
But if you're reading carefully, King confuses some of the directions. I don't remember the precise details, but you're thinking, wait a minute, if Roland was walking this way, west should not be in the direction King just said it was.
Right.
And for a while, this is a very mild spoiler for future volumes, but as the tower is in more and more danger, let's just say time and direction start to get a little bit strange
Yeah.
in this world. And I thought maybe King was just laying in some of that really early on. But going back and reading through it again, I think King was just so used to thinking in terms of direction, living near the East Coast as he has basically all his life. I think he just kind of made an error there. I really do.
Yeah. Early on in the first half of the book, I just kind of had a picture in my head, and then later on, I thought, well, did I mess up and not remember it right?
I think King made an error with the directions at a couple
Okay.
points, but yeah.
All right. Regardless of that, our hero Roland is walking up the beach, and he's completely infected, and it's kind of like the first book where he's always kind of like on death's door. He's running
Yeah.
out of food, he's running out of water. He finds the door, he opens it up, um, and I thought at first it was he was in the eyes of a bird.
Yeah.
He's looking down, he's dizzy, so I thought, okay, the door's gonna produce like different images, and he's just gonna have to pick the right one, jump through it, and hopefully he's not in the sky, but he's actually looking through the eyes of a modern day passenger in a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And the first, uh, we know him as the prisoner. That's this chapter or this section of the book. There's
Mm-hmm.
three, and he is the prisoner, and he's actually a heroin addict who went on a drug run, and he's bringing back drugs into the United States. He's got them strapped to himself. Roland can see through his eyes, which is kind of cool. Uh, the actual character's name is Eddie. Eddie doesn't know he's there unless Roland wants him to. So
Mm-hmm.
we're figuring out how this whole system works with, can Roland go through the door physically? Can he bring stuff back with him? Just the whole process, and with Roland describing things, like you said, it's kind of funny because he's a fish out of water the
Yes.
way he describes things.
Yes. This is the point where the book takes on a very different tone from the first one. It's almost, I mean, there's a lot of action too, but this section with Eddie in particular, it's almost comedy, just the fish out of water stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
like you said, he's seeing through Eddie's eyes, and we find out there's kind of he can take different levels of control of these people. That he's kind of inside their mind. Um, Sometimes these people are aware that there's somebody inside them, and sometimes they're not. Doesn't Eddie look in a mirror at one point and see these eyes that he knows aren't his eyes, or something like that? And
yeah,
Yeah, because they're like blue or something or gray.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And at other points, he can even just take full control of these people, almost like possession, basically. But yeah, Roland through Eddie's eyes is seeing all these things that he really has no understanding of. Just for example, Eddie's course, trying to get back into the country with these drugs strapped to himself, and he knows he's going to have to get through customs. And Roland thinks this is some kind of ceremony that is going to involve priests and all this. He keeps talking about the priests of the customs and what they're going to have to perform to be allowed through. It's just funny the way Roland is conceptualizing all this stuff. And yeah,
Yeah, I think the cool thing about Roland is that he is still in gunslinger mode. So he's assessing everything. He's looking at people, you know, these people are soft. They don't have their wits about them.
mhm.
And he picks up that the stewardess knows there's something wrong
That's right. Yeah.
with Eddie, you know. And the reason is his eyes change color, when Roland pushes
Oh
forward.
yeah. Yeah.
She notices that. So Roland actually, Eddie may have just scooted right through customs and everything, but because Roland takes over and he starts acting strange, it kind of puts him on the radar of this flight attendant, which gets, well, do we
And
want to get into that?
she didn't necessarily know something was wrong, but if you remember back during the 80s, then they talked about as being the golden age of terrorism when there were a lot of plane hijackings, and yeah, they would take control of these planes and end up taking them to some country where they would trade hostages and all this stuff. She was afraid this might be a situation like that. So didn't she go and get some boiling hot coffee or something she was ready to fling at him if he got up and attempted to flash a weapon or something? I
Hmm.
remember she was thinking that way.
Yeah,
So
she got a
yeah,
thermos with the lid off.
yeah, and Roland had picked up that she knew something was wrong and was ready to react and all this. So
Yeah, because if you go like further on in too with it as well as I guess whenever he picked up that she knew something was wrong, when they finally land the plane, he ends up going to the bathroom, and
mhm.
that's where he finally shows him like about walking through the door
Yeah,
that he comes out of.
yeah,
Like to me, this first section is by far the best out of all three, just
yeah,
because of how he's trying to get his wits on how everything works. Plus, it is funny, a lot of things. Plus, this dude is like a crackhead and a cocaine head, whatever you want to call.
hmm,
And so he's constantly wanting to hit or get his fix, and he's like, "No, you're not doing this."
yeah,
So
Yeah,
yeah.
there.
So once Eddie heads to the restroom, Roland kind of reveals himself and says, "We're going to get you through this." And Roland being there to help keep Eddie calm helps him ultimately get through customs. And they were able to hide the drugs in Roland's world. That helped a lot too, of course. So they
yeah,
didn't find anything on Eddie.
Yeah, do we want to talk about how that works? Like going through the door?
Yeah, they were able to take objects that Eddie or whoever the individual that Roland is possessing has on them back through the door to Roland's world. So, yeah, we'll see that he takes the heroin back with him. And do they, I forgot, do they take, they'd already taken some food back for Roland, I remember.
Yeah,
He
it was
kept calling it
the
tutor
tutor
fish.
fish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tuna
And
fish.
I forgot, had they taken some antibiotics back? No, that's not till later.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
they
He
yeah,
basically lays there and dies on the beach for the
yeah,
whole book.
yeah.
yeah he gets well the the drugs that are strapped to Eddie while he's in the bathroom. He goes through the door, and they have to get these drugs off. And so Roland has this super sharp knife, but he can barely hold it himself, and Eddie
Hmm.
can't do it because they use this industrial like fiber tape that
Yeah.
you can't rip it off. It has to be
Hmm.
cut off.
Hmm.
So they're trying to cut this off, and well, Eddie eventually he cuts himself just a little bit, when they get it off. But they manage to get the drug off, but he has all this tape residue
Mm-hmm.
to him. So when he comes out of the restroom, you know, you got customs, the pilots are there, and they take him to this holding area, strip him down,
Yeah.
you know, check him from head to toe. Yeah, and he's got all this tape residue, and so they're like, "Where'd you hide him?" And I think it's funny that King, I don't know that they would do this, but they said, you know, in the book, they take all the waste, you know, the sewer stuff, everything from
Yeah.
this plane,
Yeah.
and they test it for drugs, and they, you know, I'm like, do they? I'd never heard that. You know, there's some things I double checked on here, and King was, well, there was a bunch of things that he was
Yeah.
just wrong about, but
Well, I think they were curious because, like you said, he had all these obvious rashes and marks from the tape. They said, this guy had something taped to him. He had to have hidden it somewhere. Well, he had to have flushed it or something. And yeah, they were just searching everything they could think of and couldn't find it. So
Did he not say it was like a sunburn or something?
I think that's
yeah,
a story. But
Yeah.
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 Well, he manages. Roland comes forward and scares one of the custom guys, and he just basically says, "Let me out of here." And
yeah.
the guy looks at him, you know, because when Roland comes forward, his eyes change, demeanors change, everything. So it freaked this guy out.
Mm-hmm.
So they just let Eddie go. Of course, they're following him, and Eddie still has, you know, the gangster guys. You know, he's late, so they pick up his brother. This was all kind of set up by Eddie's brother, who's like a heavy
Yes.
heroin addict. So they basically kidnap him, dope him up, and Eddie's got to get back. You know, he tries to get back to his brother. He's in a cab and eventually gets picked up. So I don't know if we want to pick it up from there with Balthazar, the
Yeah.
gangster.
Well, first we get the background with Eddie's brother. He'd always been very close to his brother, really looked up to him. Um, I forgot what happened to their father. Their father just taken off, or their father died, or I don't
I,
remember
th-
the detail on that.
I think he just left. I don't remember him dying.
Yeah, but yeah, it always kind of been them and their mother, and like I said, Eddie just really looked up to Henry, and Henry did a tour in Vietnam and came back very, very addicted to various drugs, and Eddie ended up trying it, getting addicted to, and they got involved in the criminal drug world, and Henry is currently with a fellow named Balthazar, who is the one that Eddie was supposedly picking the drugs up for. Henry had, yeah, set all this up. So Eddie's got a problem now. He's got to find a way to placate Balthazar and get Henry out of there. And
Yeah, I think
there's some of Balthazar's thugs are pretty dumb, but there's one who's pretty sharp and kind of has Eddie's number. What's his name? Jack something?
Oh, yeah. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
I'll take my
I
glasses
definitely don't remember. But yeah, like continuing on from that, like if you go, and I guess whenever they finally meet, that's when Balthazar basically tells him that he pretty much OD'd his brother and then cut his head off.
Yeah, they're not going to tell Eddie that, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I found weird is that, you know, he's a heroin addict, and they keep giving him, you know, fixes, but you don't have to hook him up that much to keep him doped up. Like, this guy's not putting up a fight. You know,
Yeah.
they're playing like different games and asking Henry questions, and he's answering Johnny Cash to everything.
Yeah.
You know, they're playing like Trivial Pursuit, and Johnny Cash is the answer. So he's completely out of it. So for them to OD him, you know, I thought, well, that's kind of a big jump. You know, they would want to keep him alive
Yeah.
because that's, you know, that's Eddie's motivation is don't hurt my brother. But if
Yeah.
they kill him, you know.
But
It almost,
anyway, um, Balthazar is basically holding the brother at this point as a bargaining chip. He knows that that's kind of Eddie's weakness. And Eddie and Roland are prepared for action. I forgot, was there some reason they weren't able to just hand the drugs over and be done with it? Or,
Well, they went into.
they
Go
they
ahead.
picked him up, right? Like
Yeah.
before he was able to go back and get the drugs. Like I think the whole plan was for him to get there and then go into the bathroom, and then they go through the door to get the
right,
drugs to come back,
right,
and then they pick him up because the cops were telling him the whole time. And then he ends up getting there, and they have this big conversation. He's like, "Hey, I don't have them on me, but let me go to the bathroom and I will have them when I come out." And that's the big plan, I guess you'd say, while they're there.
hmm,
But he ends up not letting him go by himself. So
that's right, that's right.
he
And
goes into the bathroom.
he's
Another guy goes in with him,
and he's naked.
and he's naked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor Eddie gets so many body cavity searches during this section. Poor dude. But yeah, that's right. They weren't able to just hand over the drugs because they were always under watch. So instead, they pull Jack, what's his name, back into Roland's world with them. And
No.
that actually leads to one of my favorite moments from the book because was it? It was either Roland or Eddie who was shooting at this guy, and a lot of Roland's ammunition had gotten wet, so it's kind of a coin flip whether it's going to be functional, whether it's going to fire or not. And this book, it's divided into sub chapters, and one sub chapter leads up to this cliffhanger almost as to whether this is our final shot. Are we going to be able to put this guy down before he puts the fatal bullet to us? Then the next sub chapter is just it did not fail or it did not misfire or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, old Jack takes a bullet and ends up getting devoured by our lobstrosity friends. So
You're talking about you hate the word lobstrosity.
yeah,
Another one that I cannot stand that King does in every book is goose flesh. I hate
oh
that word.
yeah,
That is the worst. What is wrong with goosebumps? Why do we have to change that word? I understand maybe some others, but like, why?
I don't know. Is that
He's done it in
regional?
literally every book I've read of his. Every one of them, it's in there.
Maybe it's a regional thing or something. I don't know.
Maybe
Yeah.
because I've never heard it until reading all of King that I have.
Yeah. But anyway, after they dispense with the smart bodyguard, Roland and Eddie decide they're going to go back through guns blazing, and we get a crazy, crazy action scene. Just some of the weapons are named that are involved. I'm thinking there would be nothing of that room left. But
Yeah. We
And what
have.
makes it good too is he's naked running around shooting people.
Yeah.
That's
Eddie,
the
yeah,
funny part about it.
Eddie's naked. And I remember Roland, that was the first time he kind of has some admiration for Eddie. He says, "Not every
Yeah.
man's able to fight naked like that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, is this something he's observed, or is this another really weird class that Court had at some point?
Well, as
But
much action as Roland's seen, he probably knows that if you're wearing shoes, it really does help. And so, I mean, Eddie doesn't have anything on him, so he's rolling and sliding and
yeah,
carpet burning and
hmm,
everything. While I think one guy had he had a machine gun, basically like an M16,
yeah,
and he comes in blazing that. And King did a good job of explaining the physics of that because it's like full auto, so it
hmm,
rises up as you
right,
shoot it. So he
Mhm.
comes in and it's just he's shooting everybody else, but
yeah,
But the two guys, he came in because he had no idea how to handle it. So he comes in, some guy had a shotgun and like frames and everything's just exploding. Roland's having trouble with his gun because that's a thing with the bullets. Some are bad, some are good. So he's just firing. That's a dud. This one's good. And he's using his left hand, but he's still accurate, which I liked.
Yeah.
Oh, Eddie picked up I think he picked up Balthazar's 357 Magnum, little handgun there.
Yeah.
And then he started taking out people, but he got shot, didn't he, in the shoulder? Eddie did.
Yeah.
He got
Yeah. Okay.
winged. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when they threw his brother's head into the room.
Yeah. Which you wonder why they did that. I mean, is it vengeance at this point? I mean,
Well, they're Italian gangsters, and that seems kind of like excessive even for them. Like,
I think it's just a
everything
plot
going on.
thread for motivation for the book in general
Yeah.
for Eddie, because when that happens, that's the whole point of him basically losing it, and multiple times after that wanting to just kill himself. And Roland's trying to bring them all back together, I guess, because he has to be able to continue to the Dark Tower. It's almost like I feel, which is just me, I feel like he did it. Like that's the only way he could come up with to make him motivated, or for Eddie to stay motivated to do something.
yeah.
Because there was no point in continuing on after that, because when he killed Balthazar, what else is there for you to do? Everything's done, but
Yeah, I think you're right. Henry's death probably gave Eddie more of a motivation to go with Roland ultimately. But also, I like the seems kind of uncaring on Roland's part, but he's come to have some admiration for Eddie, and having been in his head, he realizes the relationship that had been there between Eddie and Henry, and he realized that Eddie had always been more capable than he himself realized, and that Henry had actually kind of dragged him down. And what's he say when Eddie's just sitting there holding his head and going insane? He says, "Toss that piece of rotten meat aside, prisoner," or something like that. Which, yeah, it's unsympathetic, but at the same time, I think, yeah, he's saying, hey, you've got potential. You're almost better off without Henry. I mean,
well, he mentioned a couple of times that he thinks he could be a gunslinger
mm-hmm.
in it. So
Yeah,
it's almost like I guess technically it is. It's like a redemption arc for him, for as bad as he was. And then Roland kind of turns him good by the end of the book.
Yeah.
So
well, he's getting there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, after having had both the shock of being involved in gunplay for the first time in his life and holding his brother's severed head, Eddie reluctantly goes back with Roland, and I think they take some.
Roland does grab his clothes.
He does.
That's one
yes.
thing.
Yeah.
As this is going on, he packs up his shoes and everything, because I'm like, if they forget to say that he doesn't have clothes going through this door,
It's naked the whole book. Naked and afraid.
And I think they take some. Balthazar, for some reason, had some antibiotics conveniently stockpiled in his medicine cabinet, so they get a hold of that stuff for Roland.
It was implied that he fooled around.
Yeah.
And so he needed penicillin, a steady supply of penicillin. So they get Keflex.
Yeah.
They take that back with them.
Which Roland keeps calling it, what, Chief Lead or something like that? Yeah. And so they go back, and we have kind of I don't know if you want to call it an intercession period, where Roland is recovering from his infection and Eddie is going through heroin withdrawals, which isn't pleasant for either of them.
King does a pretty good job of, if there's an addict in recovery, he does a pretty good job of, putting you in their shoes of kind of, what
He's
they
had
wouldn't
some
give.
experience on that front. Yeah.
Yeah. What they wouldn't give for a fix.
I don't know if King ever had a heroin problem, but he has
No,
other issues.
no. I've been watching a lot of, I told you I was watching a lot of his videos. And so his main choice was, if, if he could get uppers, he'd get uppers. If he could get downers, he'd get downers, but he preferred
Hmm.
uppers,
Yeah.
things that would pep him up,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah. So, yeah, we kind of have this transitional period when Roland and Eddie are both out of it. They're just kind of experiencing things in flashes because, like I said, Eddie's going through withdrawals and Roland's recovering from this infection. But I guess Eddie does figure out that they can actually consume the lobster meat, though. So
Yeah,
that
Eddie sees these giant lobsters and he's like, well, let's
give it a
see if
try.
they're
Yeah.
tasty. And he gives it to Roland, and Roland's like, "This stuff's it's what poisoned me. It's gonna kill me." He didn't realize. I think at first he didn't realize he was eating it. And then he
Yeah.
was like, "I'm gonna get poisoned." And it turns
And
out it's regular lobster meat.
Eddie says, I've been eating it for days. So if or
Yeah,
whatever. But yeah, after that period, eventually I can't think of anything more major that happens until they come on to the next door. So
yeah. They're basically Roland is almost fully recovered thanks to antibiotics, but he's not 100%.
right,
Um, and so as they get to the second door, uh, the it, we're I don't know if it's just right after that, but we're in an area where he didn't have enough antibiotics to kick the infection.
always
So
take
he's
your full antibiotic course, kids.
yeah,
But
yep,
yeah, it gave him some reprieve, but it didn't kick it entirely. Yeah,
right,
and
right.
so yeah, we come to the door and we meet the so-called Lady of Shadows this time. And oh, where to begin with Odetta slash Detta? Um,
This is without question the worst section of this book, in my opinion. This whole middle with her. I could not stand any of this.
oh, I like Detta as a character in an entertaining sort of way.
It's
Um,
just so much of like, why do we, I mean, she keeps repeating the same things over and over and
she
over and
does,
over.
yeah.
And it's like, we get it. No, I don't know. I couldn't stand it. I hated this whole section.
So
But
when they
anyway,
get to the door, real
yeah,
quick, uh, Roland and Eddie are at the door, and Eddie wants to go through. He's like, "You can
that's
trust
right.
me. I want some. I'm going to get some KFC. A hamburger, one fix." And
Yeah,
Roland looks at him, and he's like, "There's no way in hell you're going through this door
yeah,
because you're an addict, and you're
hmm
going to be long gone." So, props to Roland because you can't trust an addict,
right,
because once, like they say, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic.
right. He
And
had
so
Eddie's
even though
number.
if he went through that door, he would have been long gone.
Well, Eddie had detoxed, but he hadn't been away from it nearly long enough to have kicked any kind of addiction yet.
Right.
So, yeah, he's trying to bargain. He said, "No, I'm just going to go get some KFC." And yeah, Roland has his number though. Says not happening. Then Eddie get really desperate and swear that he's going to
He's
cut
going to,
Roland's throat when he
yeah,
goes through or something.
yeah, he's
And
going to
Yeah.
knife him.
yeah,
I'll kill you then.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, then he pretty much tells him, though, you have to have us both, otherwise you can't get back.
yeah,
Because they both have to be alive for him to be able to walk through the door.
yeah.
Oh,
And when they first looked through the door, didn't they see a pair of hands? It just looks like there's a lot of shoplifting going on, basically, if I
Well,
recall correctly.
yeah, I think at first it was perfume, And
Yeah.
then I think maybe we should explain uh, Odetta first.
Well, yeah. I just wanted to again what they actually see when they
Yeah.
first look through the door, but yeah, just all they see is a pair of hands. And can they tell she's in a wheelchair yet? I don't remember.
They just, it's a lower view, you
Yeah,
know? Yeah.
yeah. Doesn't Eddie even mentally compare it to the steady cam shots from the Shining movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is interesting
Mm.
because King famously hates that movie.
Well,
But
he mentions The Shining twice, so I wrote that down. And one was Steadicam, and I forget what the other was. But it's interesting that uh, King mentions the Steadicam because, like I said, I've been watching a lot of videos, and King is actually a pretty well versed student of the Shining movie,
mhm.
which is weird, for somebody who didn't like it,
I thought it was interesting too. Whenever you go back, okay, so I'm first reading this book, and the first thing I think of with him naming his character Eddie is one of the kids from It, the bad
Yeah.
one, and the whole time I don't know why it just kept bringing up in my mind. I'm like, is that not the name of the really bad kid that tortured, that was mean to everybody?
No,
Or I don't think it was, but
that was
it kept,
Henry, and
yeah, Henry.
yeah.
But I just kept thinking that's Eddie. That's Eddie. And it's like the way I looked at it was like, okay, this is what he would grow up to be
Oh,
from where he was as a kid, is how terrible this kid is, or this guy is.
yeah. Eddie was
Mm.
the hypochondriac kid in it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They had the
Yeah,
inhaler. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, Roland goes through the door, and if I recall, they go into like a changing room, and he gets Odetta slash Detta back to his world fairly quickly, doesn't he?
Yeah, she's shoplifting and she's
Yeah,
putting a bunch of junk in her purse, and Eddie takes over her body. And this is the first time where the two split personalities in
right.
Odetta Detta realize that they're both there and that somebody else is there as
Hmm.
he's pushing her into the dressing room to get away from the security guard.
Right. But yeah, there isn't a long plot involved in getting her back to Roland's world. It happens almost immediately in this case. But yeah, at this point, we probably ought to talk about Detta Walker is the well, Odetta Holmes is, I'll say, the legitimate character's name, but she has an alternate personality named Detta Walker because she has dissociative identity disorder. King keeps calling it schizophrenia, which is wrong. But I don't know, Scott, you want to talk a little bit about Odetta, and I can
The,
talk about Detta or however you want to do it, or
yeah, so Odetta Holmes, right?
yeah,
She's an African American woman in living in 1960, 59.
something like that. Yeah,
So she's in a wheelchair. She's had her legs amputated in an accident where she was pushed onto subway tracks. Uh, she's wealthy. Her father made his money through some dental appliances that he's made.
yeah,
She lives in New York,
hmm
and she goes down to Alabama for, I think it's the Freedom. They call them Freedom Riders. She protests in Alabama, and she goes back to New York. And there's always these gaps that she has, and in her mind, she always explains away these gaps just with various excuses. But
hmm
it's Detta Walker, her like evil personality, taking over, and Detta Walker does some mean things. She's not murderous or anything, but I described her as uh, if you remember Reagan from The Exorcist,
Yeah.
so a possessed Reagan from The Exorcist with all her cussing, but she just doesn't have legs.
I like
So
that. I like that. Good comparison.
yeah. So imagine her with just with her hands crawling on the beach, and like they describe her face actually kind of changes, the way you view her, she looks completely different and like completely insane. So just imagine the exorcist is chasing you on the beach, threatening you to cut off your bits and pieces and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So when she takes over, she's completely murderous.
Yes.
She wants to murder Roland and Eddie.
Yeah. Really quick here, we've got someone we're familiar with declaring us stooges.
Up, Kevin.
Well, who am I? Do I get to be Mo or Larry?
He always says I'm the Larry for some reason. I don't know.
All right, I'll be Curly.
That'll work.
And he helped us
Yeah.
out here. Holmes Dental. Yeah.
It,
Odetta's father, he patented some kind of dental device or procedure or something. I don't remember the exact details, but they'd become fairly wealthy from that. But yeah, there's quite a contrast, as you say, between Odetta and her alternate personality. Odetta is very humble, almost saint-like. She's involved in the civil rights movement. She lives in this penthouse, but I mean, she doesn't put on airs. She's not lording it over anybody. It's almost like Detta is what she pours all her resentments and disappointments in life into, over all the things that have happened to her and all the things she resents, the reason she's involved in civil rights. She doesn't like white people very much. Let's put it that way. And at first, I thought Detta really came off as almost a caricature, but I think it's Eddie that realizes that she is that. She's deliberately playing that up. She's wanting to come off that way. So, but
the worst part about
it's
it
kind
too
of like
is
it's like a defense mechanism.
yeah,
Is what she is. So
she's trying to be that extreme. Yeah,
right. And she's actually based off of a character from Gone with the Wind. Like when they described her voice, I wrote it down, and I've seen Gone with the Wind one time.
Oh, Prissy from Gone with the Wind.
I think that's. Hang on, I have her real name here somewhere. You can talk amongst yourselves as I find it.
Yeah.
well, okay. So while you're looking for that,
Really quick, let me tell you. You were saying you didn't like this section,
No.
Rowdy. One reason you might not have. King really writes this section when he's introducing Odetta and giving the background of when this Detta persona first developed and what she keeps talking about. She calls them for specials, these nice things she likes to steal and go destroy, and she really likes going and destroying these things, I'll just say. But he's writing it in a different style, and I haven't read a lot of him, but from the few short stories I've read, I think he was almost trying to imitate William Faulkner's style. I don't know why, but yeah,
I got really tired of all the like sexual stuff. Like it just would never end, talking about every time she was on the screen or on the page, it was, oh, y'all two are gonna, have relations or whatever. And then I know you want to have relations with me. And it's just like all the things I do to you. And it's like, okay, we get it. You're crazy.
Yeah.
But it just kept going and going and going and going. Like it never stopped. So that's what really got on my nerves. I can handle some. I get it. She's a nutso, psychopath, whatever you're going to say. But
gives you a sense of what Roland and Eddie would have felt like, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing too is like the personalities are so different, because the other one is just like you said, she's like a saint, and even Eddie falls in love with her,
Yeah.
and is like, okay, we could get married. I love this woman. I don't care that she's in a wheelchair,
Mhm.
but and I guess that's the whole point in it. It's just the two just extreme differences in her personality
Yeah.
that it's kind of crazy on, like, to me, where she is, as you said, like a saint at one end and then basically the straight devil in the other. How
Mhm.
she interweaves it whenever they're not separated, while they're actually together. And she still seems at, later on in the book where they're like, she's still a normal human being that's not
Right.
beyond nuts. She can control, all the evil and everything that's in her head.
Mhm.
That's what
Yeah.
gets me with it. But the
It's
extremes. Whoa.
it is Prissy from Gone with the Wind, who is
Right.
played by a lady named Butterfly McQueen, who they
Butterfly
mentioned.
McQueen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't familiar with her, so I looked her up and heard the way she talked. And so the way she talks in real life or in these movies is how, that was a stereotype in the 30s on film. So that's what Detta goes with, is like these stereotypes that were put on film.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, Kevin saying her dead persona becomes important later, and it does. I mean, little bit of a spoiler ahead of time. Towards the end of this book, the two personas kind of become fused again into this, I guess you call it, complete person called Susanna. And
Is that not one of the books?
Oh,
one of them's called The Song of Susanna,
Song
yes.
of Susanna? Yeah.
But yeah, the dead side is still there and surfaces occasionally. And for all she can be annoying and obnoxious, she also lends a certain amount of strength to this person. So
Yeah, I do agree with Rowdy on this though. Like they, like normally I say, oh, you can cut this out. You can cut this out from some books, and then sometimes I go back and say, don't cut it out. But they could have cut, or King could have cut 50, at least 25 pages of just repetitive stuff, like that they go through with Detta, and it's just like, okay, how long can they drag this out?
yeah, about the fourth or fifth time she turned her wheelchair over. It's okay. I get it. Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I'll tell you something funny. I was having to have some testing at the hospital the other day. Nothing wrong, just checkup I have to have done occasionally. And I was walking from having a CT at imaging down to the lab to have some blood drawn, and I happened to pass by the chapel, and I looked over and I saw a rack of votive candles. I had this nurse walking along with me, and I immediately, because this was coming up, thought little white candles, and I had to stop myself from bursting out laughing because I did not want to have to try to explain what I was laughing about.
Kevin,
But yeah, we heard a lot about little white candles in this one. Yeah, Kevin knows.
yeah, Detta wants to cut off some stuff
Yeah.
from Roland and Eddie.
Yeah.
If she had her chance.
Or she keeps suggesting that Roland and Eddie are going to do these things to each other with little white candles,
Yeah.
and yeah. But something Trav brought up in his discussion of this book, and I think he might have had a point. Did you really buy the relationship between Odetta and Eddie?
Too quick. Yeah.
I agree.
Too quick.
I agree. Now, the one thing I could see is that they've both been ripped out of their own worlds to this strange place of gigantic, monstrous lobsters and this weird gunslinger guy who's telling them these weird things. And you figure at least they had this point of commonality, even though they came from different decades, at least that is something familiar they could kind of cling to in each other. But Yeah, I wasn't entirely buying the type of relationship they developed that quickly.
Yeah, Eddie, Odetta he describes her as, beautiful. Well, she has nice teeth. Her dad's a dentist and
Yeah.
everything. But before she gets to this world, we don't really get like a description. Like, I don't know how old she is. She seems older. I mean, she's older than Eddie, uh, but how much older? I'm kind of thinking like, well, she could be in her 50s. I mean, I was kind of confused, and
I
about
think
her
she's in her
age and stuff.
30s, if I remember right, and Eddie's in his 20s. So
Yeah.
there's a little gap, not a huge, huge one, but Kevin actually has a good point there. Eddie is still kind of vulnerable going through withdrawals. That's something kind of familiar he could cling to there. But
I think that's got a lot to do with trauma too, if you think about it, because a
yeah,
lot of people, when they're both going through, I would say, extreme drama or extreme heartache or, whatever it is, he just lost his brother, was in this crazy shootout, and now he's in a whole nother world. Well, she just gets ripped out of her own world. And in this place, it almost feels like maybe it's meant to be fast. If you notice, like, it may just be like straight fake, but like a lot of these like TV shows nowadays, especially back in the beginning of like kind of like Real World or whatever back then, or The Bachelor, how they fall in love and basically it's like 30 days or 60. It's like,
right.
really, are we really loving somebody? And you notice nobody ever stays together long. I mean, there's been a couple, that survive, but it's almost like they're both bonding over just being in this crazy place, and they have no
Hmm.
one else because Roland ain't like he's the greatest person to talk to in the world,
Right.
So it's like they're basically kind of like the two, even though they're also in two different worlds, in their own worlds, also in another world, in his own world. So
Yeah.
they basically have each other, and that's it because there's no one else around.
Yeah. That's the one thing I could say, that they're both thrown in this bizarre situation. At least, even being from different decades, they would have some points
Yeah.
of commonality. I mean, yeah.
But yes,
Um,
it's still fast. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're
yeah.
literally there for, I don't know, a few weeks, I guess, ain't it?
Hmm.
'Cause, I mean, it's not forever, but I mean,
Here's Kevin saying Odette is a cougar.
I think he's talking about the wild cat that's later in the book, the cougar
Oh.
that we
uh,
hear howling.
yeah.
Yep.
That's what he's. Don't jump ahead too far ahead, Kevin.
But yeah, we
Now,
gradually work our way up the beach with Odetta occasionally lapsing into the Detta persona and making a lot of trouble, but eventually we ready to talk about the third door.
Sure.
Okay. We arrive at the third door, and I forgot when they got there, had Detta disappeared
n- uh, Eddie
yet?
and Detta are actually when they arrive. It's Eddie and Odetta. So Odetta's back, the good one.
Hmm.
They arrive. They're at the door. Uh, the gunslinger is back a couple days behind them because he's laid out. He's passed
That's all
out.
right.
The uh, the infection has come back. He can barely move at this point. So he gives Eddie instructions like, do not leave her when you get to the door. Leave her there, but do not leave this gun with her.
Right.
So Eddie gets there, leaves the gun with her because he hears this mountain lion, this
Right.
cougar,
Right.
and he's afraid for her. So he up and leaves. He takes the wheelchair with him. He kind of sets her up on high ground so the lobstrosities,
Yeah.
can't get to her. Leaves her one of the water bags, I think. And so he double times it back to get to the gunslinger, makes tremendous time, gets him in the chair. Well, the gunslinger tells him, you need to sleep for 4 hours because you're just exhausted from 2 days of running. Puts him in the chair. He sleeps his 4 hours. They run back. When they get to the door, Odetta's gone. And that's when
Yeah.
Eddie and the gunslinger kind of have a, you know, serious talk about what to do
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, I mean, they know she's handicapped. There's only so far she could have gone. They know she has to be up in these bluffs or cliffs somewhere, probably watching them with this gun. But yeah, but we have this third door, and as Kevin says, it says the pusher on it. And Rowdy, you want to
I
talk?
I assumed it was going to be another drug dealer, like the
Yeah,
pusher.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of whenever they said that was his name. And I was like, really? We're going back to drugs again?
No,
It's like after he did that? Well,
this is a pusher of a different sort.
yeah.
um,
No.
you want to talk a little bit about the pusher,
Yeah.
Rowdy?
So I was a bigger fan of this section than I was the middle because it more had of a story and it was shorter too.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what happened was you find out he was the one that pushed Odetta onto the train tracks
Right.
that got her legs cut off. So I'm trying to figure. I mean, I guess I still am not positive about it. Is the whole point of this drawing of the three to get them all together to try to not necessarily forgive them of their sins that they did, but kind of forgive each other in a way because even though because he did something to her, she's just crazy. But I don't know. I something just feels off. This whole book felt off to me. So I'm lost, basically.
Well, all we know is that he gets this prophecy both from the succubus oracle or whatever, and from the
Yeah.
man in black with the tarot cards, that he's going to be drawing these three individuals into his world who are going to be his new quartet, is the term. It's kind of his group that will be accompanying him on his quest to the Dark Tower. And yeah, I guess you could read that they're kind of finding redemption together, certainly.
Well, I
I think
mean,
that probably reads most clearly with Eddie, but
yeah, I was going to say, like, Eddie seems the one that might almost like he would, in a way, take over for Roland. I mean, I know he's not, obviously. I mean, the whole books or the whole series is basically about him, but he's the one closest to. And then it's more of like the other two are just like he has to get over what he did to her and she has to forgive him for what he did to her. Type. I mean, I don't know. It was just weird.
Well,
yeah, Kevin threw in here.
Kevin asked if she had the wet rounds.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
This is now in this part we don't know. Like the gunslinger, he plays chess while everybody else plays checkers. So we don't know if he's given Eddie some good rounds or some wet rounds.
That's right.
So he's just playing. He's playing kind of the long game on this. So we don't know if this gun will even fire.
Yeah, because they brought back some rounds that work in Roland's guns from New York, hadn't they?
Yeah, him going into the gun shop was funny to me.
Yeah,
he's like, "What? All this?"
That's in this section. But I mean, even before this, hadn't
Yeah.
they brought back some rounds that? Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Did they bring back some whenever they got?
I don't think so. I think they brought.
I thought it was just at this.
They hadn't yet. Okay. That's right. It's just that Roland's, some of his rounds got wet or got more wet than others, so there's question about which ones are more likely to be functional. But
do we want to talk about how Odetta and Detta came to be through the pusher? The split?
Yes, that's right. This happened much earlier in Odetta's life. He had been stalking this family, and he dropped a brick on young Odetta's head, and it nearly killed her. Wasn't she comatose for some time?
Mm-hmm. She was in a
But
coma. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, when she recovered, she started having experiences of this alter personality, and it became more and more strong and manifesting more and more over the years. Like I said, it's almost like she poured all her anger and frustrations and darker aspects of her personality into that alter ego. But so yeah, this pusher guy, Jack Mort, he's been there for a lot of.
Well, he was so he's an accountant.
Hmm.
He's basically a serial killer because he
Yeah.
stalks his prey and pushes them into
Hmm.
traffic,
Yeah.
onto subways, and he does other stuff. Uh, so
We
when
talked
Roland,
Oh,
about
that's right. He was the one that pushed Jake too, wasn't he?
yeah, I
that's
was going to bring that up.
I
He
forgot about that. He was the one. Okay.
yeah, and Roland, as it turns out, foiled his attempt to do that. So stay tuned. That might just be coming into play in
Mm,
future books.
okay.
yeah. So I wasn't sure because Roland's in his body and he sees, he's seeing through Jack's eyes. He's getting ready to push Jake, and so he's able to stop him. Jake gets away. So I wasn't sure if this was like, oh, are they going to jump ahead 2 weeks and he's going to push him again, or is this that actual moment? But this is the actual moment that Jake gets away.
Yeah, that's a good point here.
Mm,
But, yeah, the whole idea of Katet is these people are kind of bound by fate, and yeah, Odetta and Jake are actually bound through Jack Mort's activities. But, so yeah, if I recall, one thing that's different about this one is when Roland arrives in this guy's head, he immediately feels what kind of guy this is, and when he sees what he had been planning to do with Jake, doesn't Roland just immediately take complete control of this guy, and he's not messing around here. He's not going to, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he. We get into a little more with what it's like for the gunslinger to take over a body. He can basically access all memories with stuff. So, things in this world, if he needs an answer, he just goes through the memory Rolodex. So
Mm-hmm.
he's able to fairly navigate well through everything. So he kind of throws him in the back seat. But Jake or Jack, he's because he's always been in control. He's a cool, he's just as cool as they come. Then all of a sudden, he's got this guy inside his mind, and then he kind of retreats mentally into like a fetal position.
Yeah, he
And then,
freaks out. Yeah,
yeah, so he kind of breaks down mentally.
yeah, and yeah, as you said, well, he's controlling this guy. He goes into weapon shops and procures lots of ammunition, and then he gets some antibiotics too.
That was whenever he had the cops um, going after the people because he had kind of found out that he was part of sort of the mob or something. And that's when he dropped his wallet and kicked it under.
Right. Yeah.
And then he calls the cops and is like, hey, these guys, or he stole my wallet because he
Mm-hmm.
was trying to get weapons and guns. And then because he asked him where the pharmacy was, because that's when they come in and kind of busted the door down, or all that happened with them. And then he leaves after he knocks the cops out, pretty much,
Yeah.
and then gets the medication. And then they kind of pick up on him, I guess, because they're running down the street after him later, once everything goes through.
Yeah.
Well,
But more
the
more fish
gunslinger,
out of water. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
yeah, the gunslinger hops in the police car,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so he doesn't know how to drive. He knows what's because he's accessing memories. So he's telling Jack to come forward and drive, and Jack's like, no. And so he tells him, I'm going to rip out your eye. And see, the gunslinger and Jack, they know they can't lie to each other because they're in each other's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So when he
Yeah.
says he's going to rip out his eye, Jack knows that he's telling the truth. He's
Yeah.
going to rip out his eye. So he says, okay, I'll drive. And so that he always has that in the back of his pocket, like, I'll rip your eye out. It doesn't mean anything to me, you know?
Yeah.
So he heads to the subway station, and the rest of the cops, everybody's on the lookout. You know, they got their radios, and they're like, hey, that's the guy in the blue suit, you know? And he's got the two cops' guns, like,
Mhm.
you know, like crisscrossed across his belt like a gunslinger.
Mhm.
And people are just like, okay. You know, they see this guy
Yeah.
in a suit, but he's like looking like a gunslinger. One of the cops takes a shot at him, and we think he's a goner at this point, but it hits a lighter.
Yeah.
So he's on the
Yeah.
ground, and the cops come up and they're like, whoa, nice shot. And they're above him. They're checking him out. He's actually on fire, and the gunslinger is able to kick him and get away from the cops. You know, he's
Mhm.
playing dead and stuff. So he's actually still on fire, you know.
Yeah.
And Jack's inside his head screaming, and the gunslinger's like, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get more of the fish out of water humor in this. I love how he keeps thinking the cops are the gunslingers of this world. And weren't there some of the cops who are out of shape and just kind of pathetic? He knocks them out and says they've forgotten the face of their fathers or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And he doesn't kill the cops because he's like, even though they're lazy, and like one of the cops, when he's in the drugstore, he takes a shotgun and just blasts it, and he's like, and the gunslinger's like, you could have killed innocent people. He
Hmm.
goes, I'm not going to kill you because I still have respect for you because you're a gunslinger. But you know, he shoots the gun out of his hand and
Yeah.
other things. But he's still very respectful of the gunslingers,
Hmm.
you know, in
Hmm.
this century. So kind of interesting little thing.
So while all this razzmatazz is going on, I guess we should talk about what's been going on with Eddie and Detta back in the other world, because it's all kind of comes to a head all at once. So
Well, Eddie falls asleep.
yeah.
Adetta gets the drop on him. She's able to basically hog tie him.
Yeah.
So he's on his belly. He's got
Drags him down near where the lobstrosities are going to be coming out of the water.
right,
Yeah.
and so he can't. And it's funny because we watched there's a Nicole Kidman show on Amazon based off of a book that everybody's reading. She plays a doctor. Um, Scarpetta. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Sounds familiar.
Okay, so I watched that in the first episode. There's a serial killer. He hog ties them. He ties their feet together, and it goes to around their neck. And as soon as you let your legs down, it starts choking you. And so that's
Right.
the same thing that Eddie had.
Exactly.
He couldn't let his legs rest, or he would choke himself to death. So he was in constant torturous pain to keep his legs from fully cramping and not passing out when he had to
Hmm.
rest them. So it was kind of this. I mean, she's evil, you know. Detta
Oh
is
yeah.
very bad
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course,
So
from Eddie's perspective, this is at least physically, the woman he's fallen in love with and all this. But yeah, so all this is playing out simultaneously with what's going on with Roland back in the, so kind of a race against time for Roland. So guess we should talk about how Roland ends up resolving the situation and getting back to Midworld.
yeah, I mean, at this point in the book, this is like we got some good action going on here.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
I was flipping through it pretty quick on this
Yeah.
part. You know, waiting to see how it ends.
Hmm.
Yeah. So last we find Roland is inside the guy's body, running down to the subway. He's on fire. Flesh is burning him, and he has 200 rounds of ammunition stuffed in his pants. He
Yeah.
has the Keflex stuffed. Oh, the guy's wearing women's underwear, which
Oh
he
yeah.
thought was unusual. So when he's stuffing it in there, he's like, "Well, this is unusual, but considering the guy that
Yeah.
the
He
body
just
I'm in,
kind
okay,
of makes note of that, but
yeah." So he's got all this stuff stuffed in his underwear, and he's running down the subway. And if somebody wants to take it from there,
Well, I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but as I recall, the cops are closing in. This guy's on fire and panic. Doesn't Roland basically just bail out of his body as he's throwing himself into the path of the subway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And ironically, Jack Moore ends up dying beneath the wheels of the subway, and Detta is looking back through the door and sees what happens. And I don't quite understand why, but somehow her seeing her tormentor killed in the same way that she was handicapped kind of resolves her psychological situation. Her two personalities kind of make peace and merge into this Susanna persona.
Yeah,
Am I missing any details there?
it's the same. It's the same platform where
Yeah.
Odetta was pushed. So that was part of it, you know. So she recognized that part, uh, and yeah. So like she's seeing all this as he's coming out. Uh, the well, the gunslinger, and so you know we got in my head. I'm just picturing these two women just they're still fighting each other like.
Mm-hmm.
And so Odetta, what she does is just basically gives uh, the other lady a hug
Yeah.
and tells her it's okay, you know,
Yeah.
you're safe
Yeah.
with me, and that kind of helps them smush
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all she was doing too, like while she was waiting, was just waiting for him to come back so she could kill him. Because
Yeah.
she's got the gun. What's his name's tied up, about to get eat by the
Yeah.
monstrosities, and so she's just waiting to shoot him as soon as he comes back.
But yeah, while she's undergoing this transformation, Roland's able to get down to the water line and rescue Eddie at the last second. And I won't say they live happily ever after. That's not exactly what happens, but
Well, yeah, Odetta's actual middle name was Susanna, so that's
oh, was it? Yeah.
yeah. In the book, that was her middle name, so that's the name she took when the two formed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin says here, Ka is a wheel. That's Ka is kind of Roland's word for destiny, and that's a motif we see a lot in Stephen King, that things have a way of coming back to the beginning point again. And I guess he's referring to what happens with Odetta and Detta and seeing Jack Mort meet the fate he did at the same place. It's kind of coming back to the origin point again. So
So at this
yeah.
point, you know, we jump ahead, maybe not too far, like a week or two, because the gunslinger has taken the antibiotics,
Mm-hmm.
and I know a lot about them. And I was waiting for the explosive diarrhea to happen because when you take antibiotics, it strips the good bacteria from your gut. And so this has not happened yet. And with their meat diet, you know, they're just eating meat and water up to this point. So finally, King mentions that his bowels explode. He eats
Travis has
diarrhea.
some appropriate
Yeah.
commentary here.
Ew. So he eats some grass and some other greens that restore the good bacteria to your gut.
Yeah,
But I was wondering, I was like, if you're taking this much penicillin for this long, you're going to explode eventually.
exactly.
And so he does explode.
Yeah.
So good job, King. You know, you messed up on the schizophrenia part, but you got the explosive diarrhea part right.
So yeah, we have these.
Hey, Travis.
Turns out that
It's Mike Jr.
there's a bit of a twist as far as the drawing of the three goes, at least at this point, that the three, instead of being Eddie, Susanna and Jack Mort is just Eddie and the two personalities of Odetta and Detta. But stay tuned. You could argue there'll be a different third later on. I won't. That would definitely be spoilers, but you can probably guess who I'm talking about.
Now, I will. At the end of this, Eddie and the gunslinger have a conversation, and Eddie is still. He's still got a little bit of sour grapes that, and rightly so, that the gunslinger will sacrifice anybody to get to the tower. He still lets him know, yes, I love you like a brother. You could be a gunslinger too, but I'll sacrifice you. I'm paraphrasing here. But earlier in the book, this is where King contradicts himself, and I wrote it down. The gunslinger said there's only three things that matter: morality, Ka, and the Dark Tower. So if morality is one of the things that matters, why is he so willing to sacrifice a child and his two best friends that he has in the world?
Good question.
So that's
maybe he's repeating some lessons that he had in his childhood, but he's not exactly living them because he's living out this obsession. I think Eddie even says to Roland at one point, "You realize you're an addict too, don't you? The tower is your smack."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the gunslinger is not a moral character, because he always has this thing to where he'll let an innocent person die in order to reach his goals. He won't kill an innocent person,
No.
Yeah, you know who he reminds me of, but in a comic book way. Oh geez, what's the John Cena character? Oh my gosh, I'm completely blank
help
now.
us out, chat. It was in. He's got a TV show.
Peacemaker. What does he say? I value peace more than anything, even if I have to kill women and children to get there. All I want is peace. It's like, okay, that doesn't make any sense at all, but okay. And that's basically kind of what Roland is. I mean, he ain't going to try to kill nobody, but all that matters is the tower.
Wasn't there a bumper sticker back in the day? Killing for peace. It's like screwing for chastity.
Yeah.
I cleaned it up a little, but
Yeah, Kevin says their expandability never leaves. Don't forget that, Scott. Yeah, I don't trust the gunslinger as far as I can throw him.
yeah,
I like him as a character. But as a friend in this world, you're gonna have to look out after yourself.
Are we ready to rate this book now?
I think so.
Okay. I'll go first. Dark Tower, The Gunslinger was, as I'd said before, the best, weirdest 4-star book I've ever read. So weird. This right here, to me, was a big letdown. I didn't like it. No. I guess it was my own expectations because I was not expecting the drawing of the three as you walking through doors and finding people and pulling them back. And then you're handicapped. You're your main character the whole entire book, basically, where he's pretty much almost dead back in the real world the whole time. So I'd probably say 2.5 is probably what I'd give it. I just was not a fan.
Well, for me, going in, I kind of tempered my expectations based on other people's. I didn't watch any reviews on it, but usually after the third book, that's when people really kind of trail off. I think from the discussions I had, I think I watched. You know who Madeline Reeds is? She's another booktuber. I think she's pops in on your channel.
I've heard of her. I'm not very familiar though.
Well, anyway, she said with the third book, that's where she dropped off, and it seems everybody drops off. So I kind of tempered my expectations, but I'll I'll give this like a 7 out of 10. Going
Okay.
in, I knew, it was going to be different. I didn't know how, but I kind of just accepted that. If he had just cleaned up some of the middle part with the Odetta stuff and just tightened up things, it would have been a
Yeah.
little bit higher. But it's probably like a 3.5 for me. Still a
Okay.
recommend. Still a recommend.
I'm not good with number ratings. My favorite book of the series is actually The Gunslinger. That's not to say that I don't like the rest of the series, but The Gunslinger, there was just something at the time in King's life he was writing that. He was doing something so weird and experimental with that thing. He even signs it sometimes, Welcome to the Weird West. That kind of sums it up. But I would probably rank this, if I were going to give The Gunslinger 9 out of 10, I'd give this probably 7. It ranks a
I
bit below it, but
I think that's
it
my problem is
yeah.
not the expectations, because I've not read a ton of King. I've read like 5 books, 5 or 6, and everything I've read is phenomenal. I mean, it's basically his greatest hits. I mean, I've read It, I've read The Stand, 11/22/63, Salem's Lot, and Billy Summers. Now, Billy Summers was okay.
Yeah.
So my expectations going into this, because everyone's like, this is his big magnum opus, you know, and it's kind of like what you said, where a lot of people go, quit at like book 3, but then you have others where it's like, oh, this is incredible. So my expectations are through the roof. Is how I take every book, and maybe they shouldn't be, but when all I've read is basically some of his greatest hits, a lot of them, it's like it's hard to lower expectations on what he's done. And I guess that's why this one affected me the most. I was like, it could have been
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah,
We
this
have
is a
some
big this is a big departure from the first book.
yeah, we have some
So
Yeah.
opinions from the chat here. Trav says the third was way better than the second, but not as good as the first.
okay, that's good news.
I'll take that. Yeah.
And Mike's asking, but did the third book have explosive diarrhea?
Hmm.
We'll find out. Stay tuned.
Something explodes.
Kevin says
And
the fourth book is the best.
Kevin's all
Okay.
about the fourth book. Yeah.
The Wind Through
Oh,
the Keyhole. Or no,
that's
I'm sorry. Wizard
that's
and
Wizard and
Glass.
Glass. I
Yeah.
like the fourth book a lot. Yeah, it's a good
Which
one.
is, it's also the biggest book in the series too.
Yeah, I mean, liking the first book the
So
best is probably a pretty rare opinion. But like I said, there was just something so weird and quirky and different going on with that. It won me over.
and maybe that's a thing too. With King, might be better at just writing big books than he is smaller ones. I mean, The Gunslinger is really good. I mean, I liked it, but like The Stand is huge. It's great. You take out 3 scenes, and that book is really good. It's Salem's Lot's a decent size. I mean, it's nothing like those two, and it was good. But I don't know. Drawing of the 3 just wasn't for me. Oh, that rhymed. My bad.
And we got Trav saying, of course, there's explosive diarrhea, I think. um,
At the end of this book, there's a little thing that King wrote in '87, and he says he has no idea where it's going. You know, I where's Roland going to end up? I have no idea. So even after the second book, he had an idea with the third one, but beyond that,
hmm,
it was all up in the air. Which I found kind of interesting.
yeah. Let's see. Kevin says they're all vastly different from each other. I found that 6 and 7 kind of ran together for me in a way. They just felt like a very closely continuous narrative. But other than that, I would tend to agree. They all kind of have their own feel and personality.
Hmm.
See,
Now there is a comic. There's a comic tie-in that is considered canon, but it doesn't have anything like you don't have to read the books. I mean, if
Yeah,
you've read the books, it helps. But I do have some of those comics that I
I have
read
those
those.
too. I need
I
to
read
check them
those like
out. Yeah,
10 years ago, and I don't. It's mostly horse adventure and shooting and other uh,
yeah,
relationship stuff, so I don't remember much about it.
yeah. Trav, he's just started the fourth book. I'm looking forward to hearing his thoughts on it. Kevin says King is best at short stories.
How can I trust a man that only puts one video out randomly every so often? Either come back or stay gone, Kevin. Make your choice.
Oh,
The gauntlet has been thrown down.
now we're gonna get like 5 videos a day for the next 2 weeks.
There we go. That's what we need.
You know, I've heard a lot of people say that their favorite King materials is short stories. I have to admit, I have not read any of the man's short stories yet.
I haven't either.
I may finally do that this month with the Horror Mayhem event. So, been meaning to for a long time. So, and Trav says King's greatest strength is his short stories. So Trav seems to agree.
Okay.
They does well with larger novels. Yeah.
And so
Kevin
read Night
says
Shift.
read Night Shift.
Don't
Yeah.
read Elevation.
Mike says don't read all that. Okay.
Yeah, I
Cool.
think you can start with Night Shift. It's pretty
Is
good.
that his first collection or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It'll have a lot of stories you're familiar with
Okay.
that have been adapted.
Kevin seems to concur with Mike. Yeah, talking about comparing first book and this one, that's the first thing I noticed. This was just such a departure in tone with
Yeah.
all the comedy. Real, and like I said, that first section, especially with Eddie, it had me laughing out loud in places. Very different from the first book, but I liked it when I started taking it out its own terms. It's different, but I enjoyed it. So
Well, I think the part that really, another thing that got me too, is it takes you out of the world where the Dark Tower is. You know, the whole book is not being in where the Dark Tower's at. You're somewhere else the whole time. And it's like,
yeah, it's I don't want to spoil too much here, but Eddie on the airplane toilet.
no.
But yeah, it's a very confined narrative as far as Midworld goes. It all happens in this little stretch of beach, but you'll find out as the series goes on that there's more connection between the worlds than you might think. So
Okay.
you'll get that more in the next book, though. So
Do you remember the Terminator reference in this one? The Terminator was mentioned. Do you remember?
Yes, it was. Oh my gosh.
I remember. I don't remember the specifics of.
It was the two cops that he took out in the gun store. He banged their heads together.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, their careers are basically over after that because he took their guns and their belts.
Yeah.
And so years later, when one of the cops is in the movie theater, he's watching the Terminator. That's how he remembered the gunslinger talking, like, I'll be back. He's in he's in the store. We have to go get him. The gunslinger's talking like a robot to him. And then he stands up in the theater and goes, that's it. And he has a heart attack. I think he dies right there, the cop.
Yeah.
But he's like, that's the guy, the Terminator.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because the gunslinger is kind of like a Terminator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boys, I got a heart out. I need to be done in 10 minutes.
Okay. Well,
right.
we're through the book, so thanks for participating, Rowdy.
Absolutely. We will be back in, what is this? The end of April? What are we
We're at the end
thinking?
of April. Did we plan on doing 4 or 3
Yeah,
releases?
I think we're doing 4 this year and 4 next.
Okay.
So how about, let's see, May, June, July. August sometime then.
You want to do well, would you do that, or would you do middle of July, and then you could do the last book at the beginning of October? That way we're done before the holiday season.
We can do that.
You do that?
Mhm.
Is that okay with y'all? I mean,
Works for me. I'm easy. So
Okay.
All right, so we'll,
Okay.
we'll plan for July for
okay.
the third book, and I think it'll be on my channel that time.
Yeah.
So if you're
Yeah.
reading along,
Yeah.
join us then.
we got Mike with thanks for the live. We appreciate you joining, Mike. And
Yeah.
we got Peter. Hi, Peter. He's just finished The Gunslinger.
Excellent. Good
All right,
choice.
You got time to catch up with us, Pete.
Yeah. Look forward to hearing what you thought of it. So,
Yeah.
So we ready to call this a finished
Sounds
deal?
good.
Wrap a bow, slap a bow on it?
Yes, thank you to all the mics that joined us today. Mike 1,
Yes.
Mike 2, and Mike 3.
Yeah. Appreciate everybody for showing up. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Don't forget to hit end stream twice.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Yep. Bye.
See you, Pete.